Number 1. When I was home for winter break, my freshman year of college, it was late at night and I had just turned off the lights to go to bed. My sister wasn't home from school yet, and my dad was out that night, visiting family, so my mom and I were home alone. My mom was already asleep, and I just stayed on my laptop a bit longer, then shut it and turned over for sleep. I hadn't been doing anything scary before bed, just talking to a few friends on Skype. But about 5 minutes into trying to sleep, I heard creaking noises coming from downstairs, like someone walking around. Immediately, my body filled with dread, and I felt myself thinking, someone is in this house. Something is here. I felt so terrified, I pulled the blanket high above my head and shut my eyes tight, trying to pretend like nothing was happening. But I could hear something moving. I had this overwhelming feeling that it wasn't my dad. It didn't move or make the same noises as him. It sounded slow and unfamiliar. I just kept hearing the floorboards creak from down below, as if it were pacing or waiting for something. I was finally able to convince myself that I was just paranoid and to calm down when I heard it. My mom screaming in the room next to me in terror. I must have blacked out or something, because at that point, all I remember is being horrified and then falling asleep. No scary dreams that night, not that I can remember. All I recall is passing out and then waking up again the next day. When I finally woke up, around 10 a.m., I ran into my parents' room, which was empty, then raced downstairs. My mom was in the kitchen eating breakfast and just casually said, "Good morning." I said good morning, and then trying not to sound too freaked out, I asked her, "Mom, I thought I heard you screaming last night. Did you scream?" Her eyes widened and she nodded, pointing at me. Yes, I was having the most vivid dream that there was something in the house. It was a bad one. Sorry if I woke you up, honey. I immediately told my mom how I felt the same thing and how scared I was. But she just brushed it off and said it was a coincidence. She's not superstitious at all. But to me, it seemed like there must have been a reason for it. I never had anything like this happen again, so no idea. I guess I'll never know for sure. Still, it was so scary to hear my mom screaming like that, and I'll never forget how agonizing it was. Number 2. My name is Kyle, and I live in a haunted house in Edmonton, Alberta. At least my mother and brother thought so at first, but I was a little skeptical that the house was haunted until something happened to me personally. I'm 19 now, but this story takes place when I was 17, in the middle of August. First off, I'll list the events that happened to my mom and brother, predating the event that happened to me. My mom and brother have both had cases of sleep paralysis in the house, which had never happened before we moved in. They both told me their experiences went like this. They felt like someone was slowly pushing down or sitting on their chests while they were sleeping, and would wake up with no one on top of them and being unable to speak or move, which is quite scary when you think about being helpless like that. Another thing that has happened to both my mom and brother was that while they were both sleeping or on their bed, something would suddenly, out of the blue, yank off the covers and scare the absolute shit out of them. My brother has had this happen to him multiple times, whereas my mom has only had it happen once or twice. My brother also experienced the same thing as I did, but 2 weeks before I had it happen to me. And he didn't tell me this until the day I saw what he did. Now that you know the predating events, I'll tell my story. It was a weekend, and my mom had left to take my brother to soccer while I was at home in my room playing video games with a friend. After we had stopped playing, I turned off my PC and said goodbye to my friend, and then just sat on my bed and opened up YouTube to watch some of my favorite YouTubers as they had just uploaded a video. While I'm laying in my bed, I hear the dishes in the sink in the kitchen down the hall start to rattle. And then I begin to hear the cabinets being opened and closed. Me being stupid and thinking it's just my mom back from soccer with my brother when they had just left 30 minutes ago, and soccer usually takes roughly 2 hours. I peek my head out the door and down the hall to see if it's them. To my shock, it wasn't them. Instead, I see a black mist-like shadow person standing at the end of the hall that leads into the kitchen. In complete awe of what I'm seeing, I just stare at this thing, unable to process what's in front of me. After what seemed like a minute or two, I dip back into my room and slam the door shut and sit against it. I remembered my phone was on my bed and text my mom to ask her what I should do. She tells me to get the hell out of the house and go stay at a friend's until she gets back. So I do that. I look outside my door and down the hallway to see if it's clear. Lucky for me it was. Gathering my courage and grabbing my longboard, I book it down the hall and out the door of my house, grabbing my shoes on the way and stopping on the driveway to put them on. As soon as I had them on my feet, I plopped my board on the ground and started off almost wiping out in my hurry and ride over to my friend's house, who I was previously playing video games with before this all happened. Once I get there, he lets me in and we sit down and I tell him what I saw. To my surprise, he believes me and tells me he saw what I saw in the kitchen while he was waking up on the couch, which is in the living room next to the kitchen. He saw a dark figure standing in the kitchen, staring down the hall towards the family room. Apparently he thought it was a dream since he was still half asleep and groggy, so he didn't say anything about it. Once my mom had gotten home and we felt okay, since we had numbers, we decided to enter the house. As soon as we were inside, we could tell that someone, or something, had been here since all the dishes in the sink were stacked on the counter beside the sink, and all the cabinets were hanging wide open, and the dishes inside had been stacked on the counter as well. We decided not to stay the night there, and stayed at our cousin's who lived 15 minutes away in Sherlock Park. When we got home, everything was back to normal except the lights in the house were on. Ever since that happened, I'm a firm believer of ghosts and the supernatural. Number 3. Just a note, this story takes place in the eyes of a 15-year-old in high school. The day started out normal, just like any other day. I woke up early at around 5:30 a.m. I tiredly shuffled out of the kitchen and got a bowl from the cabinet and poured myself a nice bowl of Lucky Charms. I sat down at the table and began to eat it. I was tired, but my mind was racing because I was finally able to talk to my friend. We'll call him James. James had been my friend for 3 years over Skype, and we got along really well. He'd been on vacation for 3 weeks, so I was excited to finally be able to talk to him again. I went to school like normal, and when the final bell rang, I burst through the doors and ran as fast as I could home. It was only about a 5-minute walk, so it was easy to run home. Once I got home, I turned my computer on and immediately opened Skype. I don't think I even took my backpack off. Once I got a minute to calm down, I went and used the restroom and put my backpack down on the kitchen table. I was usually home alone every day as my brother went to school and had football practice afterwards, and my mother worked until 7 p.m. I heard the Skype sound that plays when it opens, so I hopped on my computer and searched for James's name. I found it, but before I could do anything, I got an incoming Skype call from him. I thought this was unusual as I always called him, so I thought maybe something happened. I answered, but there was no sound. I sat there confused. So after what felt like a few minutes, I spoke up. "Hello? James? Are you there?" With no success for another minute, I was about to say it again, but then I heard something. I heard a sound as if fabric was being rubbed against his microphone. But then the camera came on. I was shocked because it was completely black with a faint glow from the left side, as if the moon was shining in. But it was supposed to be daylight. I sent him a message over text through Skype, but no answer. Right before I was about to hang up the call, I saw one bright ball-shaped object shine to life. Then I realized after the initial shock of seeing them, they were eyes, peering directly at me. In less than a second, I hung up the call and sat there scared out of my own skin. I got another incoming call from James. I hesitantly answered, and it was him. He said, "Sorry I didn't call sooner. I thought you would." So I replied, "Dude, you didn't get my message. You literally just called me." Sadly, he didn't get my message. He didn't even have a log of the call, and when I checked, neither did I. Not even the message. I looked at my phone and then back up to the screen. When I looked, I saw nothing but those creepy eyes and blackness. I shook, and the entire log I just had with him was gone. But the old one was back. I was so scared I started to tear up. When did I get a message from James? It read, "Don't be sad. Be scared." Suddenly I felt chills go up my spine as I looked at the time. It said it was 12 a.m., even though it had just earlier read 3:30 p.m. I screamed and powered off my computer. Nothing made sense. It was nighttime outside, but I never noticed the hours go by, with no one coming home. In that moment, I swear I saw some thing standing by the front door. I screamed and got so scared I blacked out. Or so I thought. Once I woke, it was 3:34 p.m., and James was on the call. He was asking if I was okay because for the last 4 minutes I kept saying on repeat, "I see you. Be scared. I see you. Be scared. I see you. Be scared." I told him everything. He said it was probably a day terror I had. But after my mom got home and I was done talking to him that day, I went on Skype's files and found a chat log for 12 a.m. from a user named 3Y3S. Ever since then, I've deleted Skype. And every now and then, I get messages from an unknown number on my phone that says 3Y3S. I blocked the number and it's been a year, and nothing has happened since. Thank God.